Saris watched, her elven ears twitching impatiently as Marcus the human typed away at the console on his wrist. She was staying as close to him as possible, not wanting to get lost in the mass labyrinth that was the gigantic factory complex she found herself in. Saris felt very, very small. Despite the fact she was barely an inch shorter than Marcus, she felt as minuscule as a child. To her left, arrayed in dozens of rows of perfect parallel lines, were the imposing scorpion-like machines she came here on. Hundreds of them, armed, loaded, ready for operations. To her right, giant box-like machines, multiple stories high, the roofs of which were moving with the writhing mass of mechanical arms and twisting gears. In front of her, an ocean of belts and machines, all leading to one large building looming in the far distance, the belts saturated in components. A massive contrast to the scene behind her, a simple shack made of what appeared to be cargo crates or boxes, turned into a humble home surrounded by trees and plants. Saris carefully looked around and counted the machines. A mixture of strange objects and other objects that she could at least partially identify, all carried along massive complexes of belts and conveyors, some on the ground, others elevated atop poles. She carefully considered what was along one particular belt line and failed to identify the component. It was a white box made of some strange reflective substance with glowing green and blue lights on one side, holes and ports on the other. She looked at another belt, stacked high with varying sizes of iron, steel, and copper gears, with another carrying copper strings. The factory was awash with a strange symphony of machinery, clanging metal and screeching gears all conforming together to form a strange, discordant symphony of industry. Saris's elven ears twitched and moved to recognize various sounds and noises, knowing some and being scared by others. The sudden sparking of a welding machine made her jump, while the clang of a plate press made her slightly more relaxed. "Oi! What you thinking, Elfie?" Marcus said, breaking her concentration. "Oh, sorry. This place is huge. What are you actually building?" Saris asked, startled a bit. "Oh, yeah, I didn't actually tell you what I'm here for, did I? This factory is designed to mass-produce these magnificent beasts," Marcus said, gesturing proudly towards the folded scorpion spider robot. "Okay. Need more? Okay. These are called the JDY Epsilon Series Discount Model Colony Service Unit. To shorten the explanation needed, these are giant service robots piloted by a person designed to help planetary colonies function and build. How can I better explain this? Golems. It's like a giant super helpful golem thing you can use to build almost anything," he explained, gesturing to its parts and components. "Oh, wow. Why are they that big? What can it do exactly?" Saris replied with a raised brow. "Anything. Construction, mining, farming, harvesting, cargo transport, factory building. It even has its own built-in assembler and piping system so you can build anything on the go. Very useful feature for any startup colony. I then kit them out, transport them off-world, and sell them. They are dirt cheap, but it's honest work." Marcus explained proudly with a smile. So there are other humans out there?" Saris asked, her face brightening up. "Yup. How many people you got in your home village?" Marcus asked, gesturing for Saris to get onto a platform. Saris climbed on, trying to be careful to follow the various signs and lettering on the ground and components telling what was safe and what wasn't. "About 200, including the crazy wizard in the observatory. I'm not sure he's crazy anymore, really." Marcus let out a scary, hearty laugh. "Oh, God, we have planetary colonies nearly everywhere in the galaxy now. Humans, just from the colony ships in the Sol Confederacy, numbered just below 900 billion. Saris let out a terrified squeak and pulled her hands over her mouth in shock. Marcus simply rolled his eyes with a sigh. "Why? Why do you keep doing that? What's with the why thing?" Saris barked in annoyance. "Oh, I don't know. Let me think. I came to this planet thinking I'm going to be alone here. Then I find an elf. Elves! Creatures humanity has always thought of as fantasy creatures in our darkest dreams. Not only that, but also a naked elf girl blindfolded in the middle of a forest. What? Seriously?" Marcus bellowed in a tone of frustration that Saris had never heard before. So, I'm a little bit annoyed here. I was told this planet was unoccupied. That's why I built a damn factory. Now suddenly I have to stop all of my operations, rebuild the factory to be less than a tenth of its current size in order to solve a murder mystery. Now I'm told that elves are real, magic is a thing, and I had ancestors on this planet. Yeah, it seems only fair at this point I aim my head to the heavens and ask the gods what kind of sick joke they're playing. Like, seriously! Marcus bellowed, more frustrated and annoyed. Like, holy crap! What sick joke are you assholes playing? Marcus yelled out angrily, waving his hands in the air as his voice echoed across the valley. Ceres simply bowed her head, now feeling a bit shy. Marcus raised the platform they were on and walked towards the cockpit hatch of the giant machine that brought Ceres here in the first place. As they approached, Maris suddenly turned on his heels and looked Ceres dead in her sparkling green eyes. Marcus grabbed her, pulling her close, and Ceres, too scared to know what to do, allowed his hands to roam freely. And to add insult to injury, the first sentient life form I encounter is the most magnificently beautiful woman I have ever seen. And even more so, she seems to enjoy wearing the equivalent of a loose-fitting denim bikini. I am single, actively looking to start a family. We're genetically compatible judging from the scan I did, and yet I can do nothing, Marcus said, and let her go. He raised his hands and bellowed again. Seriously, why? Ceres blushed, her cheeks turning an almost beet red. Marcus opened the hatch and waved his hand. In, he commanded. Not willing to annoy the half-machine, half-human monster in front of her, Ceres, still blushing furiously, climbed in and sat on one of the seats inside the machine. She marveled at the sight of hundreds of buttons, dials, switches, and levers surrounding her, and wondered what the peculiar pointy thing near the neck of the other chair was. Marcus climbed in moments later and sat in the seat next to her. He ignored her for now. Ceres gasped audibly as the strange, pointy thing slid into Marcus's neck and a short black rope connected his head to the seat. His body went limp for a few seconds, and then he sat up straight again, unconcerned there was something stuck in the back of his neck. Okay then, factory reconstruction, where's my BP file? There it is, import string, copy, paste, install. Remove old folder and... Ready, let's see. Marcus idly said to himself as he worked. Ceres remained jaw open, eyes wide as the empty hull suddenly disappeared, replaced by the world around them as if the machine's cockpit suddenly became invisible. The machine began to move around and raised up. Ceres got her first decent look at the factory complex from this high up and could see greater detail. A strange haze of heat emanated from some parts of the factory, while smokestacks bellowed thick sludge from their tops. All the smoke was sucked into some square boxes on the sides of other buildings dotted around the factory. What are those? The things sucking up smoke? Ceres asked. Air purifiers. They clean out the toxic substances like sulfur dioxide and chlorine and other highly toxic chemicals from the factory's production cycles. Then filters all of it and releases carbon dioxide and oxygen. In short, bad toxic air comes from factory. Bad air gets into purifier. Good air and tree food comes out. Toxic sludge gets used in other stuff. Rinse, repeat, Marcus replied. This explains what the trees were talking about, how they could breathe fresher air than normal. It also explained why the forest was so cheerful during the start of her magic ritual earlier that day. The machine continued to move around the factory, showing Ceres its sheer ridiculous size, with her audibly gasping in shock as she saw that the structures continued past the horizon. By the goddess! The Astanae wouldn't be able to do this in 1,000 years! How long did it take you to build this? About 2 months, give or take. Production cycle is... Marcus brought up a graph. This one Ceres understood. All arrows pointing up with numbers next to them. 280,000 components per day. Ceres let out a shocked squeak, failing to notice her top once again falling off. How, my God! You make 200,000 things? In a day? Every day? Jesus, this is a very small factory. We have planet-sized factory complexes called Forge Worlds that produce upwards of several million components per hour. But yes, the factory is in full swing. I'm going to have to rebuild it, though. Just need to do a bit of setup first, Marcus replied, rolling his eyes at the sight of Ceres's exposed breasts. What exactly are you going to do? Saris asked. Dismantle the factory and start producing specific items small scale. After that, I'm going to get on my ship, go home and inform my bosses what I found. After that, the feds will handle the rest. In short, I will be on the receiving end of the single most hated evil in the universe. Bureaucracy, Marcus said with a crooked grin. The machine moved over to a small, empty field where a number of flying winged robots were flying around. You can't dismantle this! You can't! Saris squealed in desperation. Why's that? Marcus asked as he started his work. Saris failed to answer as she saw the construction process. He built various warehouses and crates built to store devices. She saw the process of a building being dismantled, and it amazed her to no end. A hatch opened up, freeing the insides of the assembly unit. Then drones picked the machine apart with precision. The arms, the grinders, the cutters, all of it, stripped down to nothing in seconds. The empty shell containing all the mechanical arms and metal presses was folded up like a piece of paper, then plopped into storage with a loud metallic clunk. Marcus was about to press a big blue button labeled Purge when Saris cried out and stopped his hand. Stop! Please! You can't remove all this. And why is that? He asked, staring at her as one of her exposed breasts rubbed against his arm. I have to tell the elders about this. I have to tell everyone. They have to know what's going on. They have a right to know. And besides, this is our home and you are here building on it. So the least you can do is show what's going on, then apologize for doing so. She yelled, crossing her arms. Marcus thought in silence for a few moments. He let out a loud, annoyed groan and closed the cap on the big blue button. Ah, fine! Holy ball-busting Christmas! Point me to your village. Let's take your naked ass home. I am not naked, she yelled back. Says the one with her tits hanging out. Cover yourself, woman, my God, Marcus bellowed in response. Saris blushed wildly once again as she hastily restored her modesty. Marcus resumed building his factory warehouses, and Saris once again marveled at the process of what was essentially a very complicated and massively scaled-up version of the same process as assembling IKEA furniture. After this was done, Marcus moved closer to the larger structure near the middle of the factory, then began to climb its side. It was a lot larger than Saris anticipated, feeling a bit sick as they climbed up its surface vertically. Even in the stable state, the machine made the journey. They appeared inside a large hole on its side and went through. Saris, once again amazed at the sheer scale, gasped in awe at the sight. She looked around to find the chrome-plated, sterile insides of a large hangar with several large vehicles hanging or clamped from various parts of the wall, ceiling, and floor. What is this? In partnership with La Castillo de Mechanicus LLC, the JDY Caliban-class exploratory battleship. This is a starship. It is a ship that allows me to travel among the stars, and you are in its hangar bay, where I store smaller ships and vehicles for general use. Marcus said matter-of-factly and opened the hatch above them. Oh my gods! That's a thing, Saris exclaimed, shocked to her core for the umpteenth time. Yup. How else could I get here? Marcus simply replied and helped Saris out of the cockpit. But magic is... Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from any form of magic, in the same way any piece of magic is indistinguishable from any sufficiently advanced form of technology. Supernatural is a null word that does nothing but waste time and divide people, slowing progress. Science and magic are simply different ways of accomplishing the same task, and the only reason one is dominant above the other is because nobody bothered to try both, Marcus said, looking at Saris. She scrunched her nose and scoffed, feeling like she had just been lectured by a guild mage scholar. Gee, thanks. Marcus just chuckled to himself and walked towards a control panel. After pushing a few buttons, a vehicle from the back of the hangar appeared, and Saris questioned its existence. The hell is that thing? I can tell it's a flying machine, but why are its wings so small and floppy? Saris asked. My 36 Stingray infantry support gunship. It's a helicopter. Those aren't wings, they're blades, propeller blades. They spin fast enough to produce a downward force that allows flight. This one is a new version of an old design called the Hind that I converted into a personnel carrier. Now, in," Marcus commanded. "What exactly are we going to do?" Saris asked while obeying his commands. They both entered the rear of the vehicle, and Marcus strapped her into a seat near the back. "Put this on and do not take it off until I tell you." Saris obeyed, looking at the strange hat he handed to her. She nodded in approval, and he repositioned a strange cushion closer to her mouth, then stepped away from her. "Check, check! Can you hear me?" Marcus's voice suddenly came into her ears. "Yes, how did—" "Radio, have you ever held a can or container on either end of a string and spoke to your friends?" he said through her headset. "Yes, of course," she replied. "Same principle, just a lot more sophisticated. And also no wire or cable. This makes sure you can hear me through the whole trip," Marcus said as he hopped into the cockpit. "Where are we going?" Saris asked again. "To your little village. I'm going to deposit you there, talk to your elders, then go around kingdom to kingdom and pick up a delegate. As you said, I gotta show everyone my factory, so I shall. But we will do it on my terms," Marcus replied sternly. The engine started up, winding gears and spinning blades spooling up to a deafening whine outside the helicopter. The 6 blades on top unfolded from their position and splayed out, then began to spin at ludicrous speeds. A mechanism grabbed the vehicle's undercarriage and dragged it out onto a platform. The mechanism moved it away from the starship's exterior, giving it free rein to fly unchallenged. With a bit of thrust, the vehicle lifted off the platform and rapidly soared through the sky towards Saris's home village. Saris began to question her actions. As much as she wanted everyone to see the incredible miracles this creature could make, she wondered why everything was so heavily armed. Even an elf with a bow could clearly see what was or was not a weapon, and the thing she was riding in was armed to the teeth. She could piece together what part of the factory went where and could reasonably guess that at least 5 of the production lines she saw were making some kind of weapon or ammunition for weapons. Her train of thought, however, quickly derailed. "You know, Saris, I gotta say something. It pains me to say it, but I'ma say it," Marcus said over the radio. "What?" "You are a very, very brave woman. You know that? Or you are psychotically crazy. I mean, if I come across an unknown battle mech staring at me, I think the last thing I would decide to do is ride it like a bucking bronco for nearly 60 miles. I mean, I have to ask, what were you thinking?" Marcus asked. I wasn't. I can't remember. I actually don't know why I chased you." "Heat of the moment, I guess," she replied sheepishly. Fair enough. Adrenaline does odd things to one's capacity for decision-making. I'll let that slide. Still, though, that was awesome. To do that, jump on a machine, then hang on it for 60 miles, that's good." Marcus's voice was deeper, gravelly now. The tone he spoke in made Saris blush, and she remained silent for the rest of the trip, choosing only to talk to give directions. Just before sunset, Whitebark's sanctum on the edge of the great forest appeared in front of them, the first few plumes of smoke rising from chimneys for the evening meal.